Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Puddles, and today we're doing some more encounter building. We're going to do some more reskinning. I talked about this in previous videos. I sort of avoided doing Volos, because I know most people, well not most people, but a lot of people don't have Volos. So I thought I would do a quick video on reskinning some of the Volos NPCs, because Volos has a really good section for that. In many ways, I think it's there are a lot of creatures in the Volos NPC section that I think are like really good for combat. So I'll just go through a couple of them for you guys. So we may as well jump right in. All right, number one, we have the Duergar Blacksail, a swashbuckler flavor. My goodness, my words aren't working. So swashbucklers are sort of like rogues. They can use the dash or disengage action. They're usually charismatic pirate people who can use charisma to give them extra armor. And then they've got like multi-attack sort of a thing. So in terms of story logic, obviously Duergar live in the Underdark. But there's no reason that the Underdark doesn't have oceans and seas and stuff, so they're underground pirates. They sail the vast seas of the Underdark, and they reign basically. More your gruff, hard life on the sea type of pirates. They sail the Underdark to settlements, raiding and pillaging where they can. Perfect. That makes sense to me. What I've changed with the swashbuckler, they usually have persuasion as a proficiency. I changed that to intimidation just because it made more sense thematically. Moved their movement down to 25 feet because of their stumpy little legs. They have the ability to go invisible once per day, just like Duergar do. And they have the resistant to poison, which dwarves have. So that's just things that he would have for being a dwarf. And then they also have the enlarge ability, which gives them extra damage. So I did that. I included all of those things because he is a Duergar, and that made sense. But I changed his rapier to a scimitar. One, to give him less damage, and it made more piratey sense. Because when he is enlarged, he's going to do 2d6 instead of just 1d8 with a rapier. So the thing with this swashbuckler that I have created as a Duergar Blacksail, I think will be much more powerful than your average swashbuckler. So I've tried to tone it down a little bit in the damage, but just because it's a bit stronger doesn't mean you can't use it, but you should just factor that in when you're actually creating the combat encounter. In terms of the encounter, I've got the Blacksail here. He's the captain of the ship. He's got his pet bat, which would be like his parrot, I suppose. He's got an imp friend and a couple of Duergar buddies, which, yeah, would be a pretty fun encounter to run, I think. But yeah, that's the Duergar Blacksail. Next, we have the Bard. So I've reflavored this into an Orc Drum of Ilneval. So orcs who follow Ilneval are usually leaders. They command others in the battle, things like that. I have changed this one up a bit, but I'll just let you guys know what a bard actually does before I tell you all the things that I've changed. So the bard has ability to, obviously it has spellcasting, so I changed some of the spells. It has Taunt, which can use a bonus action on its turn to target one creature, and if it fails its charisma saving throw, it has disadvantage. So basically can give disadvantage to other like enemies. So that works well with orcs being intimidating, and instead of taunting them, they're sort of scaring the crap out of them, so they don't want to fight, or at least fight weaker. In terms of the story logic, I have the orc war drums, or the drums of an evil. They're very loud, they bang their drums. They're adept in riling their orc brethren into a blood frenzy while intimidating enemies on the other side of submission. So I'm just thinking like a big war band, you're going to have like people playing drums, making loud noises to get everyone riled up. And that seems thematic in terms of what orcs are about. So what I changed, I gave it aggressive, so it, as a bonus action, can move up its speed up to wherever towards a creature, which is something that all orcs have. I took away invisibility for a spell, and I took away sleep because I didn't think that they would really need them. You could keep them, like whatever spells you want to put in, as long as it makes sense to you, is fine. I gave them Fear, because that's what they're about, and Dissonant Whispers, which is a spell that makes people see their fears and take damage. So I went more with the Intimidation, Scary factor. I swapped their Dex and Strength, so they're attacking with their Strength, and they have less armor. I took away the short bow and the short sword and gave them a mace and a javelin. So they're banging the drum with their mace, and then if they want to go from range, they'll throw from a javelin. I would say, in terms of strength, this is probably similar to just the regular bard. It has lower AC, but it has more damage output. It has like the aggressive thing, so I haven't really changed it much that it will change the difficulty of this one creature. But when you are changing spells, just do think about whether one spell could potentially kill your party, or something like that. It's definitely important to think about those things when you're building the encounter. Next up, we have the Martial Arts Adept Reflavor, which is a Merfolk Kameo, or Kamao. So we have the Kamao, which are a Merfolk monk fighters. Story logic. In the Deep Sea Empire of the Merfolk, there are no weapons, or there's little access to them. So to defend themselves, they've learnt secret ways of honing their ki and using their bodies as weapons. And then obviously the epitome of this is the Kameo, a vortex of speed and precision. So because they live in the ocean, and it's hard to get trees and iron and things like that, they've created weapons from their bodies. In terms of what the martial adept can do, it's like a monk. It can do like a flurry of blows with its fists, and it can do things like stunning strike. Can knock people prone, and I think there's one more thing. It can make them drop something as well. So how I changed this to fit with the underwater merfolk people. Normally merfolk have a swim speed of 40 feet, but I gave them 50 feet because monks can move faster. Obviously they're amphibious because they live under the sea. I took away any ranged attack. They fight under the water. The effectiveness of ranged attacks underwater are pretty stifled, so they are all about getting in close really quickly and then fighting melee, which means that they don't probably use deflect missiles. Which is, again, one of the abilities that the Martial Adept has. It can deflect arrows and javelins and things like that. So if it's fighting in water, it doesn't need those things. And then I also got rid of the ability to make an attack to make an opponent prone, because they'll usually be fighting underwater, and with the dynamics and 3D stuff of water, you can never really make someone prone. So it doesn't make sense for them to have that. And then, to give them a little boost, instead of the deflect missile, I gave them parry reaction. So they can use a reaction to boost their AC by 2 for one attack. Just, monk style, grab a sword, or like do the wax on, wax off stuff that monks do. And yeah, in terms of difficulty, I think this is much, much weaker than your average martial adept. Obviously the fact that they will be fighting in water will make them stronger. But in terms of just like the general abilities that it has, I've taken a lot of them away, and I haven't replaced them with things that are of equal value. But I think it's an awesome change up. And in the encounter, we have like a couple of the Kameos, just a regular merfolk, and then a Mero. So again, I think this would be a fun encounter to run. And if you haven't done underwater combat, it is pretty fun. It's It's very different, and your ranged players will get angry in a good way. Next, we have the Hobgoblin Deadeye. So, Hobgoblins are this martial race who they're basically like Spartans. They train all the time. They value strength. They value combat proficiency, and it would make sense to me that not every hobgoblin is this martial expert. They aren't going to be good with the sword. So to have an archery flavor as a hobgoblin. So archer is one of my favorite NPCs to use. It is so flexible. You can put anyone in archery. At low levels, it's a really strong DPS. Like, you could have a boss as an archer at low levels and it will wreck your players and they'll be scared of it. Or at high levels, you can have them as like support for the big bad guys. If there's any like military combat or like giant armies fighting each other, archers are amazing. I had a really high one shot and the archers did more damage than some of the other creatures that were way higher CS. Yeah, they're really cool. And they're flexible, so you can put them in anything. Everyone uses bows, right? But for the story logic on this one, in the harsh martial ranks of hobgoblin life, there is no room for weakness. For years, weaker hobgoblins would die to the rigorous and harsh training. A goblin warlord saw this as a waste and started training those weak in the blade instead with the bow. He created the hobgoblin Deadeye, those who rain death from above as their stronger brethren advance in for the kill. So basically, weak hobgoblins who weren't fit out to be training with swords and stuff, they focused them entirely on bows. So that makes sense to me. In terms of changes, I didn't change anything. You don't have to change anything. There's a section in the book that tells you things that you can do if you're changing the creature's race and things like that. You don't have to do any of those things. You can just take the stats of the archer, put it on a hobgoblin, and say this is a hobgoblin Deadeye. Changing things up can definitely add things that you might want in your combat, or things like that. But you literally can just use the stats in the book for the NPC. Some creatures are going to be stronger than other creatures of their race. Some are going to be smarter than the other creatures of their race. You don't necessarily have to have every single hobgoblin super good at fighting melee. And yeah, I suppose this was just an example of that you don't necessarily need to change anything for it to be interesting as well, even though it can be quite interesting when you do change things up. But yeah, this is just the last skin reflavor video that I'll do, I think, unless there's like super high demand for them. But I hope they have been useful and interesting, and yeah, I'll catch you all next time.